Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Millennial Smark, and I'm bringing you the slop, the whole slop, and nothing but the slop. So, apparently last night, Sami Zayn beating Karrion Kross. That was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. People have had enough, damn it. People are done. People are canceling WWE. People are jumping off a Peacock. AEW, here we come. Fuck you, Vince McMahon. Even though Triple H is running the company. But again, people online, retards, they can't help it, right? Apparently, Sami Zayn beating Karrion Kross for most people last night was the last straw. That was it. They're kaput. They're done. They are tired of people like Sami Zayn being shoved down their throats. They've had enough, damn it. And look, I can understand the premise, and I'm actually going to side with you guys. Not for the reasons that you have come up with, because, again, it's the IWC, and for some reason, winning one match automatically means a person is now considered Hulk Hogan, whatever the fuck that means. Now I will say, the proverbial, or I guess the consistent consensus that I'm getting from the majority of the people is that the spotlight is way too much on Sami Zayn as of late. Like, I'm not seeing anyone calling him, Sammy Hogan because he's winning a lot of matches. I don't think I'm seeing anyone calling him Sammy Hogan because he's burying talent. I mean, that's just not living in the land of, granted, we're going to have some people who will say stuff like that, whether it's because they're delusional or because one of their favorites lost or because they're just trying to rage bait. But again, the consistent consensus that I'm seeing is that people are sick and tired of seeing Sami Zayn and the spotlight. And that in itself, obviously, is the correlation in regards to why people are calling him Sammy Hogan. And like I said, the whole Sami Zayn Karrion Kross match last night, it really irked people. Because the way they looked at it, Karrion Kross has been getting over. Karrion Kross has been getting his names chanted in every building. He's been getting nice reactions. He finally got on the PLE for the first time in over a year and a half down there. And you beat him? You beat Karrion Kross? Oh, God. Now, granted, I'm still going to attack the premise as to why I believe Sami Zayn is getting a little bit too much of the spotlight, but just a little bit of a detour real quick for the people out there who are saying this was the straw that broke the camel's back. What are you talking about? First off, this match wasn't even supposed to be on the card initially. Remember, it was supposed to be, Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles for the Intercontinental Championship. This just kind of filled in that void. So this match wasn't even supposed to be on the card. That's one thing. And more importantly, why are you guys saying this now? Like, were you expecting Karrion Kross to beat Sami Zayn? You don't have to like Sami Zayn, but just the booking of Sami currently at the moment, why? Now I know most people are going to probably be like, well, Devontae, they could develop a story out of this going forward. Why? Like, not looking at it from your perspective. I mean, just like looking at it purely from a booker's standpoint. Sami lost against Randy Orton. That was one step away from going into the finals. And he had to get his win back from somebody. I'm just saying, logically looking at it from a promoter's viewpoint, why and how the fuck did you think Karrion Kross had any chance of winning is beyond me. Now, for the underlying argument, I do agree with you that Karrion Kross should have won. See how I'm doing this? Promoter standpoint, you're delusional. How did you not see this coming? Do you watch wrestling, little bro? From a fan's perspective, as far as, looking at this retroactively, yeah, Karrion Kross probably should have won in the sense of he shouldn't be in this position, right? Now, obviously, we're hearing the rumors about the back bumps and flat back bumps and all that stuff, and I did watch the match last night, and people are coping by saying things such as, no, Devontae, he took plenty of flat back bumps. Okay, first off, landing on your side is not a flat back bump. Being on the offensive, where you can kind of dictate how you land, is not what I would necessarily constitute as a flat back bump. A flat back bump to me is someone actually giving you an offensive move and you having to take the move. Meaning, when you land on your back, it's going to be up to them how comfortable you land. That's a flat back bump to me. Yes, obviously a flat back bump can be with you on the offense, but again, that's you dictating how you land. When someone gives it to you, that's the idea of a flat back bump being taken in its inherent scope as far as how the move is supposed to be, right? Or at least the offensive in itself. I counted 2, personally. I counted the what the fuck does he call it again? The Blue Thunder Bomb. I counted that one, and I counted the corner exploder. Outside of that, I didn't see him taking any offensive flat back bumps, but that's neither here nor there. As far as the character of Karrion Kross, right? The character of Karrion Kross, that's a little bit different. Does he have an interesting character? I think so. Does he have the size advantage on the Sami Zayn? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but what I am suggesting is, should he have actually been in this position to begin with? That's where you start to look at those little things, right? Now, granted, with Sami Zayn, he is a little bit bigger, obviously, than, say, a Johnny Gargano, but it still has that similar effect as to what I've been saying for years now. I call it personally the Damian Priest Johnny Gargano effect, or just to keep it simple, the Priest Gargano effect, where you have a guy who is bigger than his opponent, but he's selling like he's the same size as his opponent. Now, again, I'm not here to say that Sami Zayn is a small guy, but in comparison to a Karrion Kross, especially the point that you're trying to get across, no pun intended, Karrion is bigger than Sami, notably at the very least. Not crazy bigger, but it's notable. Should you have had Karrion Kross go out there and sell in the manner as to how he was selling for his Sami Zayn? You know the sad part? The sad part is, kinda yeah, because Sami is the bigger draw. Sami is the bigger star. Therefore, he dictates how the match is supposed to go. When it comes to professional wrestling, you have to put that logic in your head in order to constitute whether or not something makes sense. And unfortunately, things only make sense based off of the popularity of the superstar, and then you start to correspond that with the size and, you know, differentiation or differences as for differentiation. You start looking at the differences in sizes and whatnot, right? As far as a concept on its own. But that's the problem with a Sami Zayn. That's the problem. And that's why people are more notably to see him and say, like, he just gets way too much. Now, we have more things to take apart as far as the Sami Zayn character is concerned, but I think that right there is really rubbing people the wrong way. Sami Zayn doesn't look like your prototypical superstar, right? Sami Zayn does look like an indie geek. Now, granted, over the past few years, he has put on a little bit more mass, but just his look, his aesthetic, how he just comes across, he just looks like a normal geek off the streets. And I'm not going to take away what he can do. I'm not going to take away his actual ability. Sami Zayn can talk his ass off on the microphone. Sami Zayn does have a character that does relate to the WWE Universe. He has all these abilities. He's a great in-ring performer on top of that also. He has star qualities about him. It's just the way that he looks compared to how people grew up on professional wrestling, especially for the more older heads. So you can include me in that if you want to. They just can't buy into the Sami Zayn character. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard, and people are going to say, "Oh, Devontae, stop yelling at the cloud zone, man. You guys need to get over it. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. It's been..." Yeah, we know, okay? You're going to get old too, and you're going to have the same fucking opinion, so shut your dumb ass up. But there are going to be people who have come from the Hogan era, who have come from the Ruthless Aggression era, the Attitude era, WCW, all these areas, even like the latter stages of WWE during the PG era, honestly. And they're going to look at someone like a Sami Zayn and they're going to say to themselves, damn, man, we went from Randy Orton and John Cena to this, Batista, to this, Triple H, to this. And there's some anomalies, obviously, in there, like a CM Punk or a Shawn Michaels. But they made up for it because of the stories that they participated in, right? Same could be said about a Jeff Hardy. And there are other characteristic things that they themselves have within them that is a little bit more opening to a grander audience versus a Sami Zayn, who for the most part has the relatability part down packed as far as the audience is considered. But again, aesthetically, it's pretty much just neckbeards who relate with him on that level, right? No one really thinks Sami Zayn is actually cool like a Jeff Hardy or a CM Punk or a Shawn Michaels or a Rob Van Dam or anything like that. And that's where he falls back in. Yet he keeps getting these spotlights time and time and time again, right? And I think another element that people even if they're not saying it outwardly, I think consciously they're starting to look at it and they're starting to get really, really bored with it. I know I can, and maybe I could definitely be projecting there. It's not lost on me to be thinking that I'm actually projecting. But is anyone sick and tired of the underdog concept at this point? Like, is anyone, like, when Rey Mysterio did it for the first time, obviously, right? And one can even argue to a lesser degree. You can even go back as far as maybe even Bret Hart in 92, right? Bret Hart was considered somewhat of an underdog, right? Then you have the Shawn Michaels of the world, the boyhood dream. He was considered an underdog, but it was a little bit less effective with Shawn Michaels because he went up against another underdog, right? And Bret Hart. I mean, if he went up against a Sid Vicious, it probably would have been more effective. I mean, he did later on that year, but I mean, as far as getting that title push initially, right? Or maybe a Kevin Nash or something like that, Diesel at the time, would have been more effective. But the boyhood dream concept, that was an underdog story, right? You eventually get into like the 2000s, and you can argue Benoit had the same thing also. Then eventually, and you can argue Eddie also at No Way Out. Then you get into the Rey Mysterios of the world, which honestly, people say underdog, but I think people don't really understand this when it comes to Rey Mysterio. People boo the fuck out of Mysterio. I can tell you right now, when I was a teenager and Rey got his first world title run, not a lot of people were with that shit. Everybody on the internet, especially on forums, were legitimately saying that he was just siphoning off of Eddie Guerrero's name. Like, no, I mean, people still say it nowadays, but it wasn't nowhere near as bad as it was when, Rey Mysterio had his initial run as world. People did not like Mysterio. In fact, if you go back to WrestleMania with the triple threat with him, Orton, and Angle, people were cheering Angle. People did not like Mysterio. They were booing his ass. They were very much booing him. And the match against Sabu at One Night Stand, they did not like Mysterio at the time. But going on a little bit further, because I'm getting sidetracked here, other storylines in regards to the underdog story, obviously, you start going a little bit more forward, you get into the Bryan Danielsons of the world. It's just been done to death, is what I'm trying to get across. It's been done to death. And with Sami Zayn, it's like everything seems so predictable, right? Even with his wins and losses, it just seems predictable. Nothing really comes across as authentic. And I know they're trying to paint it that way. They're trying to paint Sami Zayn as this authentic character, and he's for the little man, and he's fighting. And the funny thing about it, you want to hear the funny part about Sami Zayn? Out of all the guys that I named right now, at least, conflating with his own actual personal life, the closest thing to an underdog and fighting for the little man is ironically Sami Zayn, more than the other people that I mentioned. You look at his political views, which we're not going to get into. Sami Zayn is closer to fighting for the little man than any of the guys that I've actually talked about. Yet, because we've seen it done so many times, that when an authentic person comes through who's actually doing we're fighting against oppression and against the authority, a legitimate guy who actually does live by that standards in real life, well, now we're kind of at an imbalance because it's been done so much. It's not even Sami Zayn's fault necessarily. It's just the story has been done to death. Not to mention, we live in a world where in AEW, a guy who is 285 pounds could go up against a guy who's 185 pounds, and the 285 pounder is the underdog in the match. We've got things completely topsy-turvy. And again, maybe it's in relation to the current audience at the moment of, people who don't keep up with themselves, as far as their health is considered, the way how they look, like, the neck beard look, the Reddit mod look. Like, I think those people need to be able to see themselves in the television, right? Because they all want to be wrestlers in the end of the day, but they can't. Wrestling otaku cannot be a wrestler, but he wants to be able to see himself in the wrestler. And I'm not saying specifically wrestling otaku, I'm just generalizing here. I see that, and I don't know, like, it's a lot of younger fans who feel this way, you know what I mean? Because I feel like growing up, especially for us, people who are probably like in their late 20s going forward, maybe their early 30s going forward, I feel like growing up, you used to watch movies, and the whole thing of watching a movie, especially a superhero movie, or you could even say anime for an example, or cartoon shows, anything having to do with media, is watching larger than life characters do stuff and you saying to yourself you want to emulate that. Now, you're never going to get to the extent of how they're portraying it on TV. Maybe you will, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get to that extent, but you know that you're at least going for a goal. And if you even get halfway to the goal that they have completely accomplished at 100%, then you're doing better than the majority of society, right? Right? You're not going to be 50 Cent, but if you could be 25 Cent, I'm just saying. And it's like, people don't even want that nowadays. You know what I mean? They legitimately want to see themselves on television. And I think deep inside it has maybe something to do with envy. You know, why does the Chad get to be the Chad? Why does the Tyrone get to be the Tyrone? Why does the Stacy get to be the Stacy type shit, you know? And they just don't want to see that anymore. You know, no one wants to see a Batista. No one wants to see someone like a John Cena. No one wants to see a Rock. No one wants to see a Triple H. And then you take all that, and I talked about this in the past, right? When it comes to how people relate certain things when it comes to meritocracy. I talked about this in the past. I think people within the wrestling sphere, they tie the meritocracy argument to something that can be handled by anyone, right? Being the work rate. Whether you're big, whether you're small, whether you're fat, whether you're tall, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter. It does not matter. All that matters is when you go in that ring, can you deliver? And that is available to everybody, right? Everybody has the ability to be a good performer. Not everybody can be a good performer, but everybody has the ability to be a good performer. And it's like that versus the look, right? You know, the muscles, you know, the features, the charisma, how you talk on the microphone, certain things like that, as far as how you carry yourself, it's not available to everybody. And yes, I said microphone because there are people who are just naturally super awkward, and yes, they can get over that, but some people can't. You know what I mean? Being a good performer, that takes away everything. You just have to know how to produce in the ring. And I feel they tie that more to meritocracy, ignoring the fact that it does take a lot of work to do those things that they hate so much, that they attribute to just like, you know, like what you inherit or what you inherit from, you know, your parents or whatever the case may be, which can have some truth. But I think they look at that and they tie that into the wrestling thing also. And you look at someone like a Sami Zayn and he just has that look. And he can perform in the ring. But now after pushing him so much, and I mean those people who relate to wrestling that way with a Sami Zayn, pushing him to that degree, people have taken notice, like a Triple H. And now he has coined him that artificial Bryan Danielson. He has now put him in that position. That is a new avenue. It's like when you look at grunge music, right? And, you know, people were caught off guard by like Nirvana or Pearl Jam or Alice in Chains and Soundgarden or any of those bands from Washington, right? And it's like that had its own signature sound and it felt way more authentic. And then out of nowhere, you started to get all these post-grunge bands, right? They just started to leak in left and right. Like you started to get Creed, or for an example, you got Collective Soul coming out of nowhere, or like, you know, like Candlebox, or any of those bands, or like, even to a lesser degree, you started to bridge off into like Matchbox 20 and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's like, it just gets watered down so painfully that it just no longer feels, even though it has a similar sound, it doesn't sound as authentic. Bryan Danielson was the authentic. Sami Zayn feels like he's trying to fill the void of a Bryan Danielson. And no one wants to see that. And that's just how it comes across when he's on television. And when you constantly put him in that position to be the new Bryan Danielson, people see through that. And now the people who asked for it and people who were clamoring for it, well, they got what they wanted, but I don't think they wanted it like that. And then all of a sudden, because you feel like you have outright made it a thing to stay committed to this idea of putting Sami Zayn in that position, well, now you kind of overdid it. And now the guy who was supposed to be the underdog kind of feels like the establishment. Does that make any sense? I hope I spelled that out right. I don't know. People might have, again, opinions that might differ a little bit as to how they feel about Sami Zayn, but I feel like that right there kind of embodies Sami Zayn right now at the moment. And it just kind of reached this breaking point with Karrion Kross, because last night, the big overgrown muscle dude was now Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn weirdly was now the big overgrown muscle dude. It's like it just flopped. And now people see Karrion Kross as the guy who can't get over it, who needs all our help, and we need to be able to get behind him. And Sami Zayn, the guy who looks like them, well, he is now the establishment. Crazy how the world works, right? But let me hear your thoughts down in the comment section below in regards to how you felt about the commentary. Are there some things that you kind of felt like I said that was out of pocket? I don't think so. I think I was pretty consistent here. But then again, it is me saying it, and obviously I'm going to side with me. But hey, I am curious to see how that thought process makes out with you guys and what conclusions you can make out of it, or maybe you have a different way of how to look at it. So go ahead, comment section down below. Let me hear some of your thoughts. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you guys later. A deuces and a peace.